You are listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
And I'm going to save you. I'm going to save you all. The people of this world will rise above the stations of peace. I will make them. If I have to bathe in the blood of you all to make that happen, then so be it. Justice is my purpose.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Cult of Lore. This is actually going to be a doubly special episode. I'm Ben.
I'm Eric.
And we're going to do a bit of housekeeping before we get into everything. But the reason why this is a double special episode is this is our very first Cult of Lore examining a single character from the lore.
Yes.
And that character is my man, Konrad Curze. I love Curze. I actually strong-armed Eric into downloading Audible so he could listen to his Primark book. Yep. So this was Eric's first bit of reading.
Yeah,
because I was like, no, he's much more complicated than people like to give him credit for.
Right. And that was a good way to experience the character because, you know, prior to this, he wasn't one that I was definitely not as in the know about as you are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because with that, Ben has been looking forward to this episode for so long.
I have
this guy.
I do. And I love the Night Lords. They are my favorite Traitor Legion, so I've been chomping at the bit to do this. Let's get on to it. Yeah. We are talking about the Primarch of the 8th Legion, the Night Lords.
Yep.
Now, this guy often gets kind of shunted off in two directions from the people that tend not to look at him very hard. And these two directions that I have found, and I'm sure there's more than this, but these are the two predominant ones that I saw kind of represented. One is that he is just an edgelord, kind of emo rock, hardcore, like angry metal kid.
Yep.
The oversimplification.
Life sucks.
Yeah.
That
guy. That's Corvus. It's not, but that. And the other one is that he completely just used everything to justify his own actions and that it was all an excuse.
Right.
And I think that is at best a very uncharitable interpretation, but I actually think it's downright incorrect.
Yeah.
I think I do think there was a point in time in his life where that certainly became the case.
Right.
But to ignore the rest of his life where it was a legitimate conviction that he had is to really underplay the trauma that he suffered.
And that's a really good point because like where he started was a terrible place. Yeah.
And I've heard some people say that Mortarion had it worse. And I've said before that I don't think that's true because on Barbarous, the planet that Mortarion landed on, the number one cause of death wasn't fucking suicide.
Oh, right.
That was Nostromo.
Nostromo.
Where Konrad landed.
Where he landed and was raised up.
So anyway, that's Nostromo. Nostromo is the planet that Konrad landed on, and it is a fucking terrible planet.
Absolutely miserable sounding.
It's completely covered in smog because it's an industrial planet.
Yep.
And well, actually, I believe it's classified as a hive planet, but it's like so industrial that it's just covered in smog, which completely dims the skies.
Yeah, not a drop of pure sunlight.
Well, on top of that, the star it circles is actually dying. So it's weak to begin with. So the absolute brightest that Nostromo ever got is like twilight.
Oh, right. And that's not much.
No.
Not very bright.
That's not very bright.
Yeah.
And usually it was somewhere between like pitch black and just before midnight. So this planet was dark. It's also very hot. It was described as always being sweltering and sweaty and just miserable as fuck. And everybody was broke as fuck.
Yeah. And light sources were expensive as fuck.
They were, yeah. So you often didn't have them. And in fact, most Nostromans, I believe, were born with almost totally black eyes. They had a little bit of the sclera, which is the white around your eye. They had a little bit of that, but I believe the most of it was black, and they could see very well in low light conditions.
Right, because they had over time adapted to it. But apparently not to the mood that perpetual darkness will put you in.
No. Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is there are still humans need vitamin C.
Right. And so kind of like you did point out earlier, suicide was the highest rate of death that occurred on that planet.
Yeah. And depression was rampant.
Yep.
And this was even compounded even harder by the fact that all of the wealth was very localized in a few very upper crusts socialites and like people that controlled everything.
I mean, I dare say like mob gangs, basically.
Yeah, they were like, so if you were to take the mafia from the 1920s and you were to put them into the industrial age, you have something that kind of resembles Nostromo.
Because I was getting like crime lord sort of vibes out of it.
Oh yeah, no, they're all completely corrupt as fuck, and they all know it. It's actually kind of a joke. They adapted the titles of counts and dukes and stuff as a joke.
Really?
Yeah, to kind of, because they all knew they were all criminals.
Ah, okay. So they were just being cheeky.
And in fact, it's so prevalent that it actually took over the Nostroman language.
Oh,
they talk in the Night Lord's books, and I think even in Konrad's book, that the Nostroman language is very poetic. It's very flowery.
Okay.
It's got a lot of extra syllables and a lot of extra descriptions for things, and that's to mask how ugly everybody's intentions are.
Oh,
it was an intentional trait they took.
Right, and it really evolved its way into their language.
Correct.
Oh, that's really cool. I love that.
So Nostromo's number one but the number one thing that kept them in the Imperium's good graces is they had a huge amount of, I think it's vibranium.
Oh.
Super heavy, the super hard metal. Eric will check on that.
Yeah.
I believe it's I believe they call it vibranium. And the entire crust of the planet was made out of it. And so that was like their number one export for the Imperium, which actually kept them fairly wealthy if it ever made it down to the lower people, but it never, it never did. And also that stuff was such hard work. It's why the people had to labor so hard and why it was so labor intensive. Okay, so it's actually adamantium. I said vibranium, but it's actually adamantium because, damn it, Marvel. Marvel had set that trend, and of course Warhammer came along in the 80s, so adamantium and vibranium were already established.
Right, yeah.
So it is adamantium, and that's what they worked on and what they exported to the Imperium. It's what kept them...
Kept the wealthy guys wealthy, at least.
Yep.
And the rest of the society kind of just straggling along.
Yep. And to correct myself, I actually took a quick peek. Actually, Nostromo is very frigid, but the hive cities are so industrial that it's that inside the cities it's like super hot.
Gets sweltering
but
hot.
Outside the cities is actually cold.
Wow. Okay.
Just another dichotomy.
Yeah.
So anyway,
extremes too.
Yeah, like Nostromo basically was just this really horrible industrial planet, and nothing ever happened there until one day a meteor shot from the sky and like hit the crust so hard that it actually cracked down through the middle.
Right.
And this actually ends up being Konrad's gestation pod.
Did any of the other Primarchs like break into their planet when they landed?
Probably.
Did you think
a few of them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's Perturabo, the Primarch of the Iron Warriors. We actually don't know how he landed because I believe his first memory was of him hanging from a cliff.
Oh wow!
As a baby,
huh?
But a Primarch baby, which
right?
Is stupidly
I don't
smart,
even know
strong.
What that would look at like a
it looks
5-foot baby.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Well, no, it wouldn't. It would look just like a baby because they talk about by the time they're a year old, they're as tall as a full-grown man.
Oh.
So no, it would literally just be a baby that has the intellect of a pretty intelligent adult already.
Right.
And strength to match.
And this one is clawing his way up from pretty much the center of his
Well, so it's even, if you think about it, it's even worse than that because, so Nostromo has no light.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, this streak of light comes down, cracks through their crust, right?
Oh.
Nostromo has a molten core, which Konrad would have had to have swam through to crawl out of the crack that he made.
Wow.
So these people who don't see light all of a sudden see this comet go through their world, and out of this crack in the ground comes this baby covered in molten lava.
Oh my gosh.
With black hair. Like,
oh Lord. And
that
it's already the brightest thing they've ever seen.
That would literally look like a demon coming from hell, only it's a baby.
Oh man. Yeah, I can't say I'd take in a lava baby.
No, I don't. Like, it's small wonder that Konrad ended up growing up with nobody and nothing.
Oh, that makes sense because, man, from his very landing, he was having stories told about him.
Yeah, he was having people completely mischaracterize who and what he was.
Yeah. And then as things went along, because he wasn't raised by anybody.
He completely raised himself.
Yeah.
And what people had, and what you had, what is paramount to Konrad's character, I think.
Yeah.
The Primarchs all formed and fashioned their kind of how they saw the world by their interactions on a level that is beyond even human. Like, we think about how humans interact with the world and how babies kind of take on that nature versus nurture thing, like how much nature has. For the Primarchs, that's like the nth degree. But also, Konrad didn't have anybody as a moral guide. The only way he learned the way he learned even to speak, like English, not even just English, but just the ability to talk, was he was eating bodies.
Yeah. And that's something like you kind of get like a gene memory sort of deal from
the Primarchs all the Primarchs and the Space Marines, their sons, can inherit the genetic memories of a species by sampling their DNA. It doesn't have to be eating them. It could just be tasting their saliva, tasting their blood,
right?
Other secretions. It's actually meant to be a survival trait and a kind of a way to adapt quickly when you're always on different planets with different ecosystems.
Right. Yeah. So it's very much by design. It's how they can just quickly acclimate to culture and stuff.
So Konrad was eating bodies from a planet where the number one source of bodies was suicide. That's where he formed his entire knowledge of everything. And if it wasn't suicide, they were being killed by gang wars.
Right. Yeah. Killed in utter violence. And, a lot of the people that died were also probably like committing crimes themselves.
Oh,
and
everyone did. Everybody. If you weren't on Nostromo, if you weren't a predator, you were a prey.
Right. Yeah. So that's the painting of the world that Konrad was getting.
Correct. But also with that, on top of that, he has a genetically implanted drive for justice put in there by the Emperor.
Yeah. He just already knows that's his purpose.
Yeah.
That's the way I take it. Like,
they all seem to know what their general purpose is. Like, right. I don't believe there's ever anything where the Emperor tells Lehman Rush, "You are my executioner."
Right.
Like, they all just kind of instinctively know what they are meant for.
Right. And
he knows he's there for justice, which actually leads me to believe that had Chaos not stolen their gestation pods and scattered them, and he had been raised under the Emperor, he actually probably would have been some sort of judge for planets and might have been the one to decide what legions got sent out to what planets. Something along those lines.
Who deserves punishment.
And what type of punishment they deserve.
Yeah, right. In degrees instead of just a one-size-fits-all kind of judgment method that we ended up with.
That's kind of just my own speculation of where Konrad would have landed had he not been absolutely uppercase fucked from the beginning.
Yeah. And I actually really like that thought, kind of idea of Konrad, like what his place would have been among everyone else, which then I could end up going down the rabbit hole of what about this Primarch and where would he fit?
Which
we will be
doing that. So, and that's actually one of the funner things I think is with the traitor legions is to try to figure out what their actual purpose would have been had they not been corrupted.
Yeah, if they hadn't have fallen.
Or whatever circumstances led to
what was their piece in the puzzle.
Yeah.
It was all by design.
It was.
Yeah.
So I think that was Konrad's. And then to add a final layer on the shit sandwich, Konrad inherited. Well, we actually don't know if he was inherited or whether it was given to him. I actually think it was probably inherited.
Right.
The gifts of precognition or foresight, as they call it.
Yeah.
He had visions of the future.
Yep. From the very beginning.
From the very get-go. And we know for a fact that not only did the Chaos Gods scatter them, but they corrupted them in some sort of way.
Oh, okay.
And we know that the Chaos Gods were already aware of the future that would have happened if Horus turns traitor, right? Because they lied to Horus, showing him the future, saying...
That's right.
They tricked him. So they were already aware of this future. I believe they corrupted his foresight to where he only saw this future. Whereas Sanguinius, the Primarch of the Blood Angels, who also had foresight, his was free. So he could see the myriad of possibilities that these roads could go down. Right. Whereas because of the corruption from the Chaos Gods, Konrad could only see this one.
Oh, and they picked which door they left open for him to see into.
Correct.
Holy cow.
And again, this is my theory, my own personal thought.
Wow.
I don't know that there's anything that backs that up whatsoever.
Right. Although I can, like, to me, that kind of fits just kind of from what I've learned. Like, because that's one thing that I did kind of wonder about. It's like, why was he so fixed? Although, actually, there are some instances where he sees alternatives.
There are.
But not like
Sanguinius.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because Konrad, even the example we even saw him of seeing more than one, it was only two.
Oh, I see.
It was good or bad.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. It was a fork in the road.
Yeah. Right. Like Sanguinius presents it as much more of a fanning of paths.
Okay. And he sees a wide variety.
So I would have to do more reading, but the senses that I got from it, and it just might not be that well defined, I don't know. The senses that I got from the way Sanguinius kind of described it is he could see a few, but his periphery was that there were more.
Oh, okay. Okay. That kind of makes
sense. Or
it
could just be that Sanguinius was kind of just smart enough to realize, like, if you can see 2 or 3,
then there must be more.
There must be more.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not real sure at this point. Right. I am dying to find out.
Right.
So
that's so terrible.
Yeah, so you have all these things mixing together in a fucking Primarch.
Yeah.
So to chalk up his motivations as merely justification is to ignore a lot of facts.
Right. That's true.
So what Konrad starts doing is he starts making Nostromo just in about the best way that he can. Or the best way that he understands how. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And he just starts killing criminals.
Yep.
And at first, this is actually met with celebration from Nostromo's poor people. They're actually all for it because at the early tides, the very whisperings, which when he earned the name the Night Haunter, it was a curse sent at criminals. The Night Haunter is going to come for you.
Right.
And he was actually kind of celebrated because he was able to, I think, to kind of keep himself in check.
Right. He was just that was very much when he was just doing the job that he had set for himself.
Correct. And at some point, it started morphing into like the equivalent of jaywalking. Like it was no longer just about the violence or the rape or the robbery. It was a minor infraction.
Yeah. That's true. Because he does in the book, it's at least presented as very thus and so, black and white. You have committed a crime and so you get this consequence.
But there had to be a point in time where
he was judging what was worse.
Yes.
Because like you said, he was starting from the top.
Yep.
Oh, that's really interesting. So he does have some sort of criteria, even if he didn't stick with it.
I think he got lost in his madness.
Yeah.
And also, I think partially it was corrupted by his entire understanding of the human race was from Nostromo. So he had absolutely no reason to believe that human beings were any better than this anywhere else.
Right. And on top of that, it was working. So that's really reinforcing his beliefs.
It was. Yeah. But it became quite crazy. Like the quote we actually at the beginning of this very episode is him talking to a woman that didn't try to commit suicide. No. She tried to work up the nerve for the attempt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. She hadn't even made it that far into it. She was just trying to talk herself into it.
And she actually ended up talking herself out of it.
Yeah.
And he shows up to her apartment and he skins her alive.
Yeah.
As punishment for her even tempting the idea.
Yeah.
And that's how kind of black and white, how entrenched his morality became.
Yeah. And that was a woman, but also that's not limited, obviously men, but children.
Children.
Yeah.
He filleted a boy that I believe was between 7 or 8.
Oh my Lord.
Don't quote me on that. 7 or 8.
But very young.
But very young, and for stealing an apple because he was starving to death.
Wow. Like that'd be like
that's
the Night
theft.
Hunter coming for Aladdin.
Yeah.
Well, not even. He's an adult in that movie. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Theft is theft.
Yeah, theft is theft. So he, at some point, he did just become so black and white about it. There is,
and I wonder. I myself can't help but wonder if it's because he was trying to do the gray things. He was trying to judge it on a scale. Remember, he's really young. Like he's doing this at the age of like 1, 2 years old,
right?
3 years old, but he's like the size of a full-grown man. And by the time he's 3 or 4, he's twice that.
Right.
He's got the strength of Hercules. He's got claws that can tear through steel.
Yep.
He's got an eidetic memory.
He can see things about the people's future, like often his victims' futures.
Yes,
he can see
he
them.
has heat vision. He can see infrared.
Yeah.
He can do beyond complicated math just because.
Just in a blink.
Inherently be able to do it. There's one point where I believe he's 3 years old, and he has a bullet in his shoulder.
Oh.
And he doesn't know anything about it, but he knows that it's causing the inflammation, and he knows that's infection, and he knows he needs to get it out. But he also inherently knows that the infection is not strong enough to be able to kill him even in its worst throes. So it's an annoyance.
Yeah. And he's finding all of this out. It almost sounds like just downloaded.
It was. Those were all inherent. None.
No context, no guidance.
None.
Nothing. The only guidance he's getting is off of corpses he's eating.
Yeah, the only actual context for societal interaction he's getting is from the corpses of these suicide people, gang members, and then also the people that he's punishing.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So, like, good God.
Very, very, very bleak route. He was already going down a very... I mean, from the get-go. I say already, but it was just from the start.
It was from the start. And he was one of the last Primarchs found by the Emperor. So he had a longer time to stew than most in this cacophony of nonsense.
Right.
And so the Emperor shows up, and he shows up with Fulgrim, Ferrus Manus, Magnus the Red, I believe. No, not Magnus the Red. Logar.
Okay.
It was the Emperor, Logar, Ferrus Manus, and Fulgrim.
Yeah.
They show up, and...
First of all, I thought this was kind of funny, but also terrible. Like, the Emperor comes down, and the light from him was so bright that it blinded people.
It did. It actually... So they even talk about how, like, those people that looked directly at him were blind for the rest of their lives, but they would always see the imprint of the Emperor.
Really?
Yeah, it was scorched onto their retinas. So it's not that... they just always saw him.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. It just sounds so careless of him. In a way, you know what I mean? But he really would. He's just, this planet is like one step at a time for him. It's one of many.
So I'm going to be real. I don't think the Emperor cares about people on a personal level at all. I don't think you can do what he is attempting to do and maintain that. It's just not. You're talking about trillions of people.
That is fair.
I also don't believe that he, on a personal level, gave a shit about the Astartes either, the Space Marines.
Oh, really? Wow.
I think he cared about the Primarchs.
Right.
The Primarchs cared about the Space Marines.
Right. The Space Marines were just to be their tools.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think people carry it
from the father.
Yeah, I think people carry it from the Space Marines to the Primarchs a little too much.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't think the Emperor was under any illusion that the Primarchs weren't weapons and tools.
Right.
Like, he created them in a lab. Like,
right.
But there is a point in time where Malcador the Sigillite is actually ranting and raving a little bit about how frustrated he is with the Emperor because the Emperor started calling them sons.
Oh.
So there was a point in time where he didn't do that, and then he started to. It was before they were out of the tubes,
right?
But
okay.
So there, I do think,
there's pretty strong evidence.
I think
for
so.
That. Yeah,
I think so. But back to Konrad.
Yeah.
So they show up, and he is hit with just a barrage of visions. He sees Fulgrim as this serpentine demon thing. He hears the slither of scales and laughter.
Oh.
Ferrus Manus, he sees his decapitated head hung from somebody's belt.
Oh, man.
From Logar, he saw him wearing a crown of fire, like screaming into the void.
Oh, Lord.
Which is actually ends up being Logar's demonic prince form. It's same with Fulgrim's, the serpent.
Right.
And when he looked at the Emperor, he was actually overtaken by a vision so strong that he threw himself on the ground and tried to physically remove his own eyes.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I think he saw what the Emperor was suffering on the Golden Throne.
Oh, yeah?
That's what he saw for the rest of them.
Was kind of where they end up.
In that future.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think the suffering on that Golden Throne is so far beyond anybody but the Emperor to bear.
Right.
That that was enough for Konrad just to flip his fucking shit.
Holy cow. Okay, but we don't know for sure what he did see for the Emperor?
No, of course not.
Of course not. Okay.
Jesus, they're not going to answer a question like that. Get out of here.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess.
Not ever. Never.
Damn it. My assumption was that we knew and that it was kind of.
Oh, God. Hell no. No.
Damn.
These guys won't touch a question like that with a 10-foot pole. God bless them. I got to tell you, this is the first fandom that I've ever delved into that deliberately kept stuff a secret forever.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it, but man, it makes for some interesting conversations. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's true. It keeps people talking about it. That intrigue that will apparently never fucking go away. The mystery.
Boy, not if they're smart. Not if they're smart. You got to answer some questions. You got to answer some questions.
Little breadcrumbs along the way.
But anyway,
yeah.
The Emperor physically uses his psychic powers to freeze Konrad in place. And
he's
nope, he's like,
chill,
stop, and he says, Konrad, be at peace. Konrad Curze, be at peace. I've come to take you home. And Konrad, because Konrad can't not be foreboding, says, that is not my name, Father. I am the Night Haunter, and I know full well what you have in store for me.
Oh, no.
Which is ominous as all hell.
Yeah.
But what was interesting to note is, of all the people there, the only one that Konrad actually recognizes is genuinely happy to see him is Fulgrim.
Oh.
So not even the Emperor.
Oh, really?
But
okay. I guess, yeah. Oh.
I do think the Emperor had a bit of what did you do to my son going on.
What do you mean?
Well,
what has this planet done to my son?
Well, look. Well, Konrad is supposed to be a Primarch, and then when he finds him, he's dressed in tatters, and he's wearing people's skin. Yeah, he's wearing people's skins, and he's got this planet completely ruled by fear. So the other Primarchs that ruled their planets, they actually established kingdoms.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Even Matarian, who was a whiny bitch. Managed to slay. I know. Managed to slay the big bad of their world and start to. Actually, he didn't. But he pushed them back to the point where they were no longer effectively terrorizing the native population. Right.
Yeah.
Perturabo had managed to set up his world with all kinds of mechanized wonders and things like that.
Yeah.
Angron was in the midst of leading a rebellion against these. So even the other traitor Primarchs had managed to start to uplift their worlds in a positive way, even beyond, you could say, but Konrad made Nostromo better, but none of them did it against the planet's will.
Right. I can almost kind of just see it in this context of the Emperor, all right, wow, these guys made all these accomplishments and stuff. Let's go see what Konrad's up to. Oh my God.
And so, even still, Konrad did what the others did, but he wasn't able to glean the same kind of credit from it that the others were.
Right.
Because of how he did it.
Right.
But he never had any more. Like, to him, it never occurred to him that this was a bad way of doing things.
And again, it was working.
It was.
It was, that philosophy of like shedding somebody's blood in order to save a lot of people's blood.
That actually became a major point of contention between Konrad and the other Primarchs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So Konrad, he takes off and he joins the Crusades, and he's actually, because he's one of the last ones in, he's actually not in it. He's not there. The Crusades are not going very long with him aboard.
Okay.
And even before that, him and his legion jumped the rails pretty fast. There is a picture of Konrad that we'll be using a lot of this episode. It is my favorite picture of Konrad because it gives you the only, in my opinion, real glimmer of the Primarch that could have been. It's when he's part of the Great Crusades, but it's before he fell to madness. His armor is pristine, his hair is clean, he's not covered in blood, and he looks very much the captain leading his men over a reigning city.
Right.
And I love this picture, but it represents that brief point in time where Konrad held it together, held his legion together, and they were effective in the Crusades, the Great Crusade, despite the fact that the other Primarchs had major problems with how they conducted business.
Right. Yeah. They didn't like their methods, but it's kind of like, I'm sure they were fine with the results.
Yeah. So it's just like any mental illness. Like, he was sick and then he got himself into a better situation, and that can sustain you from a mental illness for a while. Just those happy vibes of doing a thing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hold it off forever. Because eventually there's going to be some sort of conflict that's going to bring it up again. And one of those, besides the fact that he was constantly have to fend off these kind of pinpricks from the other Primarchs about how he would wage war.
Yeah.
He actually ended up confiding in Fulgrim his gift of foresight.
Oh, okay.
He was the only person he ever told besides Sanguinius. I think Sanguinius just knew.
Just knew because he also had the same gift.
Yeah.
No kidding. See, I didn't realize the other Primarchs didn't know about it.
Not at first.
Okay.
They learned.
Yeah, fair enough.
So Konrad tells him basically everything that he sees. Tells him about the Horus Heresy.
Uh-huh.
And Fulgrim doesn't flip out, but he's very troubled, and he talks to Rogel Dorn.
Okay.
And tells Rogel Dorn Konrad's secret and tells him what he saw.
Oh.
Rogel freaks out.
Oh, no.
And goes and picks a fight with Curze over it. And that's how Curze...
Is that why they fought?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. See, I didn't realize. I heard reference and mention of their fights and stuff. But yeah, I'm not too aware of the inner Primarch.
Yeah, so
relations.
Rogel... And what's funny is, well, I mean, it's not funny if you're an Imperial Fist fan, but if you're a Night Lords fan, it's pretty funny. Konrad beat Rogel Dorn unconscious with his bare hands.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, like, Rogel went looking for a fight, and he fucking got one.
Yeah. Wow.
But unfortunately, like, and this is what got me about Konrad, or this is the moment that I think people ignore. When they found Rogel and Konrad, Konrad was standing over Rogel Dorn's unconscious form, and he was crying.
Oh, no kidding. Because it came down to that, like, they're brothers.
Yeah, I don't know if he blacked out and did it.
Oh, I see. Okay, right, that could make sense. Yeah.
Or whether he just legitimately felt bad for defending himself. But whatever it was, there was sorrow there.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so when they tried to arrest him, he killed the guards that were there and fled.
Right. Yeah.
And he took control of his legion and shot off into the stars, and this led them to become declared renegade. And they were not really censured, so they the wolves weren't sent on them or anything. But it was like, hey, if anybody is able to get a hold of Curze, bring him back here to be talked to. Like, we need to talk about what happened.
Right.
And right after that, the Horus Heresy kicks off. And Horus gets Konrad on his side by saying, like, they never understood you. Also, you're a renegade now. Like, you can't be forgiven for what you've done.
Right.
Because while he was renegade is when he killed Nostromo.
Oh, okay. That's what happened.
So why did Konrad exterminatus Nostromo?
So
yeah, that's a question.
Yeah, he left Nostromo. I don't think he went back to it after the Emperor came and got him. And once their source of fear was gone, that was keeping them in line, the criminal elements started.
The quote unquote aristocrats.
Yeah, they came back out of the shadows. It sounds like it took
as
them a little while
as cockroaches do.
Yep, and he started to notice that the quality of people coming in to be Space Marines
was flagging.
Right.
So just to revisit that, every planet that a Primarch came from, if it was capable, there were some times where that just wasn't an option.
Right.
Is where they would start recruiting their Space Marine Legion from, besides the ones that had been made from Terra to go into the Great Crusades.
Right. Yeah.
So the Night Lords, Konrad's Legion, they started being brought up from Nostromo. And it used to be the best, the brightest, the strongest, the smartest, the fastest. These were the ones that were sent to serve as the Emperor's Space Marines.
Right.
But the criminal element of Nostromo reversed that because they wanted to keep the best for themselves.
Yeah. And basically keep muscle, you know? They need their muscle here.
And so they started feeding them from the prisons.
And so it really did kind of start poisoning the Legion from within.
It did. The Legion became much more about murder than fear. Because that's what his whole thing was. And that's what it boiled down to for Curze.
Yeah.
What they would do, what a typical Night Lord Konrad Curze attack of a planet would look like, is they would completely surround it, shut off all source of power. So no electricity, no night, no light, no nothing. Then they would bombard the planet with hallucinogenic gas.
Oh, my Lord.
And then they would go down and start kidnapping the population. And then they would torture them, disembowel them, flay them alive, just whatever it would take to get the loudest, most horrific, longest screams out of them. And they would broadcast that to the rest of the system of planets so that the rest of the planets would hear this one planet die off one person at a time.
Yep. And then the Night Lords would show up at the next planet and they would say, oh, okay.
We surrender.
Yeah, we surrender.
We don't want none of that shit.
Yeah.
And so they were able to conquer whole sectors and whole sections just by taking one planet.
And so that philosophy of how he handled crime on his own planet translated and was bearing great results.
And once again, we're talking planet. Men, women, children. We're talking babies.
All tortured to death as painfully and as long as possible, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
while hallucinating.
Well, so there is. So let's yes, while being.
Lord.
But let's get one thing. Let's make one thing perfectly clear. They go out of their way in the Konrad Curze book, to show there is no rape.
No,
there is no sexual assault.
No, at all
in this.
No. It is purely for pain's sake.
It is
nothing. Yeah,
there is not.
They won't do it.
They make a very specific point to show that that is not the motive. So whenever we say like the myriad horrors of torture that you can come up with that they might inflict, that is actually not one of them.
Right. It's really not. They won't.
No.
Nope.
And I'll take the time to go ahead and say that Warhammer 40K, as grim and dark as it goes, does seem to avoid that particular subject in pretty much its entirety.
Yeah. And I can respect that too, because sometimes it's used pretty cheaply. They get very creative with how they horribly torture their people.
There's really no need because they delve into the violence aspect of it so much.
Right.
That being said, though, we all know that Fulgrim gets freaky. Come on. Slanesh, y'all.
Yeah, I was going to say, though, we can probably innuendo some Slanesh shit that goes
the
down.
Emperor's children are doing a lot of fucking.
Uh-oh.
They must be. Well, they're beyond. So they were. They're beyond it now. Like they're so extreme that wouldn't even like begin to touch it. Right?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Like, yeah. They're so
because they've been soaking in it for 10,000 years.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So not now.
Right.
But when they first fell, there's a lot of fucking going on.
And then it escalated.
A lot of Space Marine dick.
How far back can I peel my own face?
Yeah, and then it became Hellraiser.
Yep.
So
yeah. the things that they would do to the unfortunate planet would cause us nightmares.
Yep. It's completely morally indefensible.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's not indefensible because Konrad was saying, but the other legions, and he was correct, by the way, the other legions would kill 3, 4, 5 times as many.
Right. The loss of life on their end exceeded his by
tons. Orders of magnitude larger.
Yeah. So
he would do to one planet, they would have to take 5, 6, 7, 40 planets before a system would cave.
Yeah. And I love and hate that moral complexity to it. It's like, who is right?
It's not so simple.
Yeah. Who do you agree with on that one? Like, is a greater loss of life, like, because they're probably killing these people relatively quickly by comparison too. There's probably not a lot of suffering for them in the moment of their death.
Yeah, you mean the other legions?
I do mean the other legions.
Not
yes,
the Night
just
Lords.
to be clear, right? They're probably killing more people.
They're dying by war.
Quickly. Yeah, they're dying by
battle.
war. So they're still suffering, of course, but not the deliberate, drawn-out suffering.
No, nothing like what the Night Lords would do.
But what is better? And I really actually would like to see some answers in the comments if you guys feel so inclined.
Like, why?
That's
like, how do you measure that?
Yeah, how do you measure, like, what is right and wrong about that? You know what I mean? Like,
I'll answer that. I'll answer that for myself. I'll tell you why I think there's a difference between why Konrad doing what he did is worse than what the other guys were doing is because I actually believe that to kill in battle is one thing and to kill in war is one thing. But to kill the way Konrad and the Night Lords did it does more than just remove a life. It corrupts the soul. There's a moral cost to it that is beyond anything that a regular like infliction of wound can grant on the person doing the damage.
That's a great point. It's you don't think about the person doing that kind of damage too, but like that changes them just as much as it has an impact.
Anybody who has ever taken a life will say that a fundamental part of your personality or fundamental part of yourself changes in some way. Yeah. Even if they can't pinprick what that might be. Right. But to do it in that type of way.
Right.
Is
very intimately tied into it too.
Yes.
For a very long time.
It's beyond corrupting.
Yeah.
And I believe that carries a much wider impact beyond what the actual death would cause.
Right.
The amount of suffering. So like, so we know about PTSD and like psychological trauma. Imagine the children of these other planets. Imagine how long it takes to kill an entire planet, one person at a time by torturing them. How long those other planets had to listen to those screams.
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
And the psychological damage that inflicted long-term on other people.
Yeah, that's true.
And what that led them to do to their families and so on and so forth. And so there's this much more wider moral impact or impact from suffering that just can't be measured in sheer body count.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's more than just a body. Yeah, counting the bodies at that point. Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, my Lord. I need to get my thoughts together on that. You hit me. That's just a really good point. God damn it. That's just a really good point. Holy cow.
And that's one of the things that without moral grandstanding, it's one of the things I think is lost when a society lose a moral center. That's all I'll have to say about that. But so Konrad's on board with the Horus Heresy, obviously.
Yeah.
And he rides it pretty hard. He ends up fighting the Lion, which is the Primarch of the First Legion. And he really is the Primarch that I think Konrad had the most actual combat with.
Oh, okay.
And he won one and lost one.
Oh, okay.
But one of their battles was like across the planet, right? So it wasn't like a short thing. Like
right.
Lionel Johnson and Konrad Curze, they were duking it out across. I think it was either Ultramar or McCrag.
Wow.
But they were just like
that poor planet.
Yeah, they're just like, get the fuck out of the way. We're having this out.
That'd be like
it'd be like
two gods fighting each other, like Superman versus Zod almost.
Yeah.
Except probably bigger. They just went across the city in their fight. Like we're talking about. Yeah.
And so
Lord.
One time, so the first time they fought, they actually ended up not even fighting as warriors. They fought as brothers and were like hand to hand, like tussling on the ground, trying to strangle each other.
Oh, wow. And that can get pretty just hateful.
Konrad would have ended him right then and there. He was strangling him to death, but some pussy ass Dark Angel came up and stabbed him in the back.
What?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, they were defending their Primarch, but still, bitch move.
Oh, right. Okay, it is their Primarch, I guess. Yeah. Damn. Wow.
And they severed his spine, so that took him out of the fight for a minute.
He had to. Yeah, it took him some extra time to recover from it.
Which is funny because you're like, it severed his spine, so it took him out for a little bit.
Yeah. He was down
again,
for a few minutes.
Primarch.
Ice pack.
Primarch.
Yeah.
But
wow.
that bitch ass angel got killed by a Sevatar.
Oh really?
The one that stabbed him back. Oh yeah, because they were
there.
Oh yeah, they were having it was like an official meeting. It was like, I think Matarian was there. Don't quote me on that. For people who know, you probably don't know who Matarian is, but he's called the War Sage. He's
the name has come up a lot. But.
He's one of the really famous Night Lords.
Oh, okay,
there's a few of them that. But right. I think he was there. I don't think Talos was there, but anyway, Sevatar was there, and it was like Konrad and his best, and Lionel Johnson and his three best, and they were having a meeting, and Konrad couldn't help but insult Lion for his hair. That's not true. I just he looks like,
for Pete's sake.
But Konrad threw an insult at Lionel Johnson, and
gotcha.
And that was enough for Johnson to launch at him.
Just like,
and it devolved into this nonsensory.
And he had a terrible relationship with the rest of his brothers.
All the Primarchs. He didn't like any of them.
No, they did not get along. None of them really. But like we say, they disapproved of his methods, but it was like really jabby.
But there was a moment when Konrad is talking to this statue of the Emperor that he has made. And this is towards the end of his life. Like, he's in the full throes of madness.
Right.
He has constructed this statue of the Emperor out of body parts of slaves and space marines, basically whoever he can get his hands on. And he's talking about his brothers, and he said, a few of them I despised, a few of them I loved, and one of them I hated, talking about Korvax. Even at the end of his life, he knows that there's a few that he loved, but we don't know who they are. We don't know which ones we don't really know his opinions on his brothers too much.
Yeah. I guess that's true, other than just kind of how they...
Yeah, just what you can infer from his actions.
Yeah, but then for him to say something like that, like at a point where he's being pretty honest about things at that point. He has no reason to lie anymore. It's
none.
Literally just him and a pile of bodies in this room. I say pile. It was probably a very nice sculpture.
Oh my God.
Human pieces.
Can't even imagine.
Oh, it sounded so gross.
I can't remember if it was in his book or the Night Lords trilogy, but they talk about like the Wailing Room.
The Wailing Room. I don't recall.
Okay, so it was this room in Konrad's flagship, and it was also had a hallway to it that was composed entirely upon of faces.
Faces.
Yeah. Like people kept alive in perpetual states of agony, but positioned in a way to where their faces made up the floors, the walls.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yep. He walked through that room at the end of the book. I didn't quite know what was. I thought it was just a bunch of people in chains that were.
No, they were like
walking over.
They were like hooked up to like machines and stuff.
Oh
and
my
used as wallpaper. Just their face. So it would be like a face here, a face here, a face here. Like to the point where when he was stepping on them, it was crushing them.
Breaking bones. And
yeah, because it was literally just a floor made out of their faces.
Man, I must not have picked up on the fact that it was literally the entire room.
Well, I think they might describe it better. And that's in the Night Lords trilogy because there's a lot more there.
Right.
So I think that might be why it's not described so much.
And plus I was very just like he was drawing to the end of his life and he knew that, like, spoiler alert. So I was just like, oh my gosh, no, what's going on? And I was anticipating. So yeah.
But
jeez. And he turned around and he thanked them all for their pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was always polite.
Yeah, polite and like as sincere as you can be when you're also
that psychotic.
when you're in that state of mind, Like, he always did seem to be like, although, yeah, no, I'll say it. I'll keep saying it because I was going to say he lied to that one woman about not enjoying what he was doing, but he forever lamented that lie.
Yes.
Like, he kept that with him. So I'd say that still speaks of a pretty sincere guy.
Yeah, he's not a liar.
Yeah, no, or at least he very much doesn't want to be. You know, it turns out he's mostly just lying to himself, and I don't think he realizes that for most of his life.
No, it's not a conscious lie, sir. I don't think so. For most of it, there does come a point in time in his life where he's like, he contemplates it. He's like, "Am I just lying to myself?" And he's like, "Probably." But at this point, it doesn't even matter.
Right.
Like,
he was already so
by the
far
time
in.
he realizes it, he's like, it doesn't even actually matter if I did lie or not.
Right.
And it's... So anyway, he's part of the Horus Heresy. He kidnapped... I'll tell you where I think he completely broke. Because we have the instance where he beat Rogel Dorn and was crying about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of him always resented and loved his brother Vulcan, the Primarch of the Salamanders.
Right.
And that's because Vulcan was always very much love and brotherhood. And if you needed a hug, big old Vulcan. It's funny. There's a scene that is funny as hell. And it's a 40K fandom joke. And I didn't get it until I studied Rogel Dorn and Vulcan enough, and then got the scene to have the context together. But there's a scene where Vulcan walks up and hugs Rogel Dorn to the point where Rogel has to hug him back. And it's so funny because Rogel is almost tismy about being touched and like showing affection. He does not like it.
He keeps it real stoic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Vulcan even goes, right before he does it, he goes, "I would hug you, brother, if I didn't know how uncomfortable it makes you." And then he does it anyway.
Oh my God.
And he just hugs him, just holds him there until Rogel finally cracks, smiles, and hugs him back.
Aww.
And that's just because that's the type of person that Vulcan was.
Right.
I wish they would just do, I wish we had more of Vulcan's interactions with the Primarchs.
Right.
Because that was him, as we understand it, to everybody.
Right. Yeah. He's just like the I love you guy of the Primarchs.
Yep.
You know?
And so
that would warm even Konrad's black.
Well, so that's what I was saying is I would love to have seen what their interactions would have been.
Yeah.
I would love, and I mean, oh boy, would I love. I would love a scene where Vulcan does what the others don't do. And he actually sits down with Konrad and tries to talk him out of his ways.
Yeah.
Just real relaxed, like
gives it,
brother to brother, where the rest of them were like hurling accusations and talking about what a monster he was and how dishonorable it was. I would love to see a scene where Vulcan just sits with him and is just like, listen, and just kind of lays it out. Konrad has to reject it.
Right.
Right? Like that's the path.
Right. We already know how things turn out, but at least, to you feel like Vulcan would try to have that moment with him,
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think they did have that conversation because during the heresy, Konrad kidnaps Vulcan.
Right.
And the moment I talked about earlier where I think Konrad finally broke and fully became the Night Haunter, where Konrad Curze and the Night Haunter became two separate entities in his brain, and the Night Haunter fully took control. He kidnaps Vulcan and tries to kill him. And when he discovers that Vulcan is a perpetual, which means he cannot die, he regenerates again. Watch our episode 0. We talk about Vulcan.
There we go. Yep. Look
and
up the
perpetuals.
prologue. Yeah.
But they cannot die, and they reform right back. Like you can't get rid of their body either. It's like, why can't you just send them into the sun? They reform right where in the nearest safe zone, which is going to be your fucking ship.
Yeah.
So Konrad takes to trying to break Vulcan's sanity through torture.
Yeah. Which,
in turn,
Konrad is very good at.
Right. But remember what I said earlier, that type of thing comes with it a cost on the inflictor.
Yeah. And now he's torturing his own brother,
who is, by all accounts, the nicest of the nice.
Yeah, probably the only one that really, kind of just tended to accept him for who he was, as opposed to.
Well, we don't know.
We don't know for sure, but I would.
But I very much doubt that Vulcan went at him full
like
flaming.
The others. Yeah.
Didn't seem to be his style. Maybe he did.
Right.
Because don't get me wrong, the salamanders are all about fire and brimstone and wrath and and volcanoes and shit, right? It's not like Vulcan didn't have a temper.
Right. He'll fucking fight.
Oh my God, will he fight? Well, you have to remember, he was head and shoulders taller than every other Primarch.
Than any other. Yeah.
So he was by far the physically strongest.
Yeah.
By leaps and bounds.
Big
so when
guy
he
among giants.
Yeah, so when he wanted to throw down, he could definitely throw down.
Yeah.
And to not belay the point, Vulcan gets free and he goes off on his own adventure that we talk about in the Imperium Appreciation with the War of the Beast.
Oh, okay. Oh, it was right before that, huh?
It was right before that.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
okay.
I mean, not right before. You have to remember Vulcan like disappears and then comes back. But Vulcan goes off on his own adventure, and that's
unbroken by the torture.
Completely unbroken. It doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't work.
Which that's gotta be kind of rough on. I mean, not to sympathize for Konrad too much there, because like, man, that's your brother. Why do this to him? But I guess like seeing his method fail.
The whole point is to try to sympathize with the character. I try to understand, and and that's why I think it broke him, is because
it didn't work. It was his brother,
right? Well, I think so. Part of Konrad is, I believe, he always thought that anybody could be what he was. Basically, the one bad day argument, right?
Yeah,
like, you're one bad day away from being me.
Right. Okay.
But when he threw everything he had at Vulcan, and Vulcan didn't crack, he was left with the only conclusion was that he didn't have to be the monster that he was. And that contradiction in his brain, I think, just shattered what semblance of sanity he had left.
I see. Okay. And that's kind of what brings us to that divergence in both name and personality.
I think so.
Yeah. No. That's a very interesting point.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Because, it is like at a certain point he would have something to prove. Like,
yes,
my method
very
works.
much so.
I'm not a monster. You will see, or you
are
know what I mean?
just
like,
as bad as well.
That
was a common thing that he said that to Sanguinius, and I think he even said that to Vulcan. He's like, "You guys are no better than me. You just do different methods."
Yeah, you hadn't been through what I had been through. If you had been through what I was, then you would have been just as bad.
But also, Konrad was kind of perplexed at why the Emperor. He always assumed that the Emperor made him this way.
Yeah,
which to a certain extent he did.
Right.
But Konrad never allowed for the corruption of chaos.
Right.
He never took into account that the Emperor never meant for him to be raised on Nostromo.
Right. That's true.
He never gave a second thought to the influence that had on his brain.
Yeah.
And the way he viewed things.
And that is kind of one thing that did strike me in the book was by that point, by most of the story jumps around in time some, but by the time we're getting to the end of his life, he's very much stressing like it is all the Emperor's fault every step of the way. And I was kind of thinking that it's like, bro, how much planning do you think he can really do as far as this stuff goes? Does he really have that much control over what happens to you?
There's no denying that the Emperor wanted to give off the appearance of all powerful.
Right.
Because he wanted to be if I'm going to be charitable, which I am, he wanted to be that center mass that would never fall for the Imperium, that structural foundation that was never wavering,
just stalwart. And
the cost of that is everybody assumes you're all powerful and all knowing, and when you're not, they don't allow for the fact that you can't plan for everything, that you can make mistakes.
Yeah.
If that's the way you want people to view you, then that's the cost you're going to get, is that any mistake that happens is going to be viewed as intentional.
Yeah.
And that's not uncommon to Konrad. Logar did the same thing, I believe. And I believe Matarian did as well. Maybe not. But if that he was not the only one that kind of fell into the Emperor designed this.
Right. He made it this way. He made me this way. And so,
it's just Konrad was the only one to really defend the methods that way.
Right. Yeah. Like this is what I was made to do.
Yep.
Yep. By Dad. Yeah.
And so the Horus Heresy happened. They pulled back.
Is that when he ends up in a stasis pod?
So,
oh no,
I don't. No, so I don't think we're actually quite sure how he wound up in that stasis pod.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that we've gotten that far up yet, because there's still some left in the Horus Heresy to be.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or no, actually, okay, I take that back. He was not at the Siege of Terra. Okay. He was actually missing at that point because Sevatar had taken command of the Night Lords. During the Horus Heresy, there was an incident known as the Imperium Secundus, which is where Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels, and Rabute Gilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, thought that the Emperor had died. They were over on the far side of the Imperium, and the Astronomicon's light went out from where they were at, so they thought that meant the Emperor had died. And so they set up a second capital, basically, a new Terra.
Right. Okay.
And Gilliman elected Sanguinius the new Emperor.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because everybody agreed. All the Primarchs agreed.
Everyone was fine with it?
No, they all agreed that if it came time for the Emperor to step aside, that it would be Sanguinius.
Right.
Sanguinius was all that was best of the Emperor distilled into a single Primarch.
Yeah. He was his angel.
He was, yes.
Yeah.
So and this is quite a problem in the modern lore. Like, it's hidden that he did this because it would very much be looked at as heresy and traitorous. And they had that argument a lot at the time, whether or not it was traitorous to set up a different Imperium and elect a new Emperor.
Oh, okay.
So this was a very controversial move that Sanguinius only accepted because he believed the Emperor was dead.
Right. And it was the only way forward, keeping the Imperium together
at
that point. Yeah.
So Konrad is there because the lion brings him. It's actually funny. Konrad stoles away on the lion's ship and terrorizes it with no armor, no nothing for 6 months.
Oh my gosh. Just runs amok in the ship.
Yeah, the lion manages. So the second fight, Konrad loses.
Yeah.
The lion captures him, also takes Sevatar and a few of the Night Lords, and takes them to Macragge, where the Imperium Secundus is being. Konrad gets out of his cell because Konrad Curze.
Yeah.
And he's got nothing, but he just terrorizes this ship.
Oh, man.
And like, it gets to the point where the lion has to go on personal hunts, tries to track him down, and the lion almost loses his shit, with the frustration of trying.
Where the fuck are you?
Yes.
Yeah. Because here's another skinned body. Where the fuck are you, you bastard?
Yes. Like, oh
my God.
Because that's what Konrad does best. He actually did that at Ultramar for a while before the lion caught up to him and they had that big giant battle. Yeah. He was just leaving Ultramarines scattered everywhere, just like terrorizing the shit out of the city.
God.
And that is the Ultramarines' like home planet. Like, how can you not find this fucking guy? But they couldn't. They couldn't.
Nope. He really does seem like the sort who is only seen once he wants to be by most. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to rewind because I'm going to talk about one of my favorite moments with Konrad Curze. And this is on Isfahan 5. Isfahan 5, the drop site massacre.
Okay.
So this is when the Horus Heresy kicks off. We have 3 loyal legions. The Salamanders, the Iron Hands, and the Raven Guard are taking on Horus, the Death Guard. And oh my God. Actually, it might just be those 2 at the time. Yeah. No. And the World Eaters. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
It's Horus, Motarian, and Angron. And so it's 3-on-3, and they're supposed to be reinforced by the Night Lords, the Alpha Legion, the Word Bearers, and the did I say Iron Warriors? Yeah. Iron Warriors, Night Lords, Alpha Legion, Word Bearers. There we go.
Right.
So the other 4 traitor legions.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is why it's called the Drop Site Massacre. The traitor legions managed to sandwich the loyalists in between. And it gets to the point where they're launching nukes into the middle of the loyalists. That's how most of the salamanders bite it, is because they cannot get the salamanders to move at all. So they drop a nuke on Vulcan.
Oh my God. Oh, okay. Yep. I've heard reference to Vulcan getting nuked. Yeah.
Yeah. They just couldn't topple him and what was left of his salamanders. So they
just root down.
Yeah, they just went boom. Because that's what the salamanders do. They're all about defensive position and fuck you, we're not moving.
Yeah, they're gonna be a wall of people that are going to fuck
God,
you
I
up.
love that's what I love about them. They not one fucking inch backwards will they fucking take. Not a one. Almost suicidally so.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that gets you a nuke though.
Yeah, sometimes it gets you nuked. But there's a point in time where Corvus Corax, Primarch of the Raven Guard, and Logar, Primarch of the Word Bearers, are fighting. And Logar's trying to stay alive because he has bitten off way more than he can chew fighting Corvus. Because Corvus ranks as one of the top fighters of the Primarchs.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And I mean, it gets to the point where Corvus impales Logar in the stomach with his claws.
Ooh.
And it drops him to the ground, and he's getting ready to impale him when Curze jumps in and basically intertwines his claws with Corvus's.
They lock claws.
They do, but Corvus only has one functioning one. And the way they describe it is Corvus is just grunting and groaning and bearing in, trying to get to Logar, and Curze is just laughingly raising his hands up and making eye contact with him, you have fucked up, son.
Whoa.
And Logar's I'm so glad to see you. And Konrad just turns around and is shut the fuck up. You are such a loser. God damn it. He's just shut up, Logar. You're not part of this anymore. And Corvus doesn't want any part of this, so he uses his jetpack to just take off.
He gets out of there. Yeah.
And Corvus does state later, it wasn't because that he was afraid of Konrad on a personal level.
Right.
It's because he knew how good Konrad was, and Corvus's armor was just not up to it. He only had one functioning lightning claw.
Yeah.
Or power claw. I think it was power claw.
Right.
Power claw or lightning claw. I can't remember for Corvus. But anyway, he only had one functioning one, and his armor, because he had been fighting against the traitors. Konrad was fresh.
Yeah. Right.
So he's just there's absolutely no way.
It was just a calculated, there's.
Yeah. It was a calculated get the fuck. Yeah, it was a calculated get the fuck out of there. And so Konrad turns around, and Logar goes to say something about surviving death, and Konrad literally kicks him across hundreds of yards.
Oh my God.
Back to the lines.
Get back. Pow.
Yeah, he's just
Sucker kick.
Yeah, he's just you idiot. Just fucking just yeets him back to behind the enemy lines where he belongs.
Oh my God.
Because I actually like Logar, but Logar's not a fighter. He's a magician. He's
right.
He's the magic caster. You don't go toe to toe with a fucking Primarch ninja, you moron.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Go back to reading books.
Yes. Do what you're good at. Summon a big ass demon to fight him.
Yeah.
Do that.
Go. Do the wizard shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what Logar was trying to prove something taking on Corvus. That was fucking stupid.
Yeah. Something got proved.
It did. It did indeed. But anyway, so during the Imperium Secundus, to jump back ahead, Konrad had been captured again after running roughshod on this ship and had been taken before Sanguinius and Rubute Gilliman. And he has visions of the Emperor, which Sanguinius says, if Konrad is still having visions of him, he's not dead. He's not dead. And I think that's when he got loaded up into the capsule and frozen, and he was taken into custody by the Lion.
Okay.
And I don't think we know what went on
beyond that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then his pod is found floating through space.
Yep. And
by some very, 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 very unlucky truckers.
Yep. Truckers. Yeah, that's pretty much all there. They were just a cargo ship out in the void. They pick up a sarcophagus thinking they hit it big.
Oh, they hit it big.
They were going to sell, the sarcophagus and
this is that was one point of the book that you talked about that it didn't occur to me as being that fascinating, but you said it was.
Oh, yeah.
How in awe they were when they thought he was a space marine.
Yes. Right. There was kind of an escalation in it. They were like, what? Because they're starting to look inside of this pod and they see that's bigger than a human is. You know what I mean?
And they can kind of see a small window and see Konrad in there frozen.
So they're like, is that an Astartes? Is that a space marine? And one of them goes, oh my gosh, no, it's a Primarch. So it was but the awe that they were treating it when they thought it was a space marine, even for that moment, was still just what you would expect somebody like if, how they would react if like a glowing, angel came down from the sky.
They are all absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
They're like, if this is a space marine, we're fucked.
Yeah. And so that really helped put it into context.
Just what a Primarch
is to a human. Just based on that, like, even if they hadn't have ever put it together that he was a Primarch, that to me already had kind of impacted me.
Right, yes.
Because I'm like, no, that's a Primarch. And then they went, oh, fuck, that's a Primarch.
And then one of the passengers, and I was wrong, I don't believe he's an Inquisitor. I actually think he's an assassin. He's from one of the assassin temples.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He might...
Codename Gun, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He might actually be, he's not an Evisor. He might actually be a male. I bet he's a male Calidus assassin. That would be interesting.
Male Calidus assassin?
They're the female, like, shape-shifting looking ones.
Oh,
but
okay.
There's nothing that inherently says they're only female. They just are often female. I bet he was a male Calidus assassin.
Ooh,
somebody will correct me. Tell me what he was, if you guys know who I'm talking about. The passenger, Gun, in Conrad.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was
the
Gun.
Night Haunter book. He is there to hunt Konrad Curze, and he actually tells them, no, this is in fact a Primarch, and this is Konrad Curze.
Right.
You guys have fucked up, but thanks for your help anyway.
Yeah. Kind of turns out like he was part of a net trying to find Konrad.
Him. Yep.
And so like he had kind of manipulated the ship into like searching the area. He was just one of many out looking for him, planted.
Yep. And he does end up being killed by Konrad.
Yep. He went down like a champ.
He did.
He went down fighting and then gutted. And gutted isn't a great word for it because really like he just getting stabbed by Konrad in the abdomen kind of just stripped away everything except for his spinal cord in the middle.
Yeah. His hand's like bigger than a frying pan.
Yeah.
So it just pushes all of his innards out the side. And it's literally just his spinal cord that's keeping his ribs and his pelvis in line.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Konrad actually knows how Konrad dies.
Right.
And so the whole time he's fighting him, he's like, you're not the one. Like, why? Like,
it's not you. Like, this is pointless. You've done this for nothing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So, and that's after he's kind of been spending some time with the rest of the crew.
Just playing around with them.
Yeah, just playing around with
hunting them, torturing them.
Yep.
Crucifying them.
Yep.
Just stretching his legs.
Yeah.
He's been frozen for a while.
He had to, kind of get up and about. I felt bad for the first guy. They kind of characterized him really well right before he ran into Konrad. He said, and suddenly there was a giant before him. And I was just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, because he was like, he was examining the biodiversity of like a pool of water in the ship, right?
Yeah, the bilge of the ship. I was getting kind of invested just like this character was, just where all the water drips down from the ship. And so it's really nasty and stinky, but like there's still bugs and stuff that have evolved down there that the rats eat. So he's like fascinated with this ecosystem enough to kind of get me fascinated in this little tiny ecosystem in a ship. And I was like, well, this is neat. And then he turns around and he's like, and then there was a giant. And he looked up because that was the only way he could see the thing's face. And I was like, oh no. Oh no. And it was, oh no. They heard his screams throughout the ship.
Oh yeah.
And then it kind of went downhill from there for the crew. And it came down to like one crew member and this assassin who kind of run into each other.
Yep. And Konrad kills the assassin. Then it's just this crew member and Konrad.
Oh no.
And Konrad's like, I want you to fly the ship.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, well, I can, but can't you?
Yeah.
And Konrad's, oh, I can. Yeah, but I want some company. And you're just like, oh, fuck, dude, kill yourself now.
Yeah. Like, just do it now. Like he had a chance.
And the planet that Konrad wants him to fly to will take them
4 years.
4 fucking years.
4 years to get to.
So he's trapped one-on-one with this ship with Konrad fucking Curze for 4 years.
And he is being tortured.
Oh my God, it's terrible. He wakes up one day and Konrad is literally millimeter by millimeter gnawing his leg off.
Yep. Just bit by bit. He ends up with a peg leg because just little bits at a time were being bitten off over the course of time. He's missing an eye. His eye got like plucked out in either for amusement or in a fit of rage. I'm not sure.
It doesn't specify. I don't think it's just said in a night that made him.
Yeah.
Still gave him nightmares.
Yeah.
Konrad strapped him to a table and peeled the flesh off one of his arms to the down to the bone so that it was no longer useful.
Yeah, until he begged him to cut it off, really.
Yeah, and then
long after
that. And then when he finally did remove the arm, he built a cybernetic replacement for it, which was nice of him.
Yeah.
But he put a claw on it. So when the guy goes to like scratch his face, he actually gouged his face.
Yeah, so he has scars on his face now because he keeps forgetting, he's getting used to that thing. All he gets for his leg, though, is a peg leg.
Yeah, it's like
Conrad's like, fuck you, but you need your hands to drive the ship, so here you go.
And it's stuff like that, but it's also stuff like he'll go weeks without seeing Konrad.
Yeah,
and then he'll step out of his door, and there will be like a hallway of 100 mice.
Just
crucified and gutted
and like skinned, like their skin will be peeled back a little bit, like a little, like
a dissection table.
And the guy thinks the guy's getting so fucked up by this point, which like the Stockholm syndrome to like any nth degree you could mention. And he's like, oh, you know what? It was kind of thoughtful of him. Like the amount of time
and effort that he put forward must have been intense
for me. Like, and he did it for him. So he had this really, really just absolutely fucked up relationship with this Primarch, but it was probably the closest thing that Konrad had to a friend for a little while.
Yeah.
And
so they finally get to the planet Sagualsa, which is just this deserty fucking nasty ass dead planet.
And there's like a sandstorm going on.
Yep. And Konrad walks off and gives the guy the chance to fuck off.
Yeah, dude has a chance to be free. He's like, yeah, do what you want.
He could have
follow me.
Yep, he could have flown away right then and there.
Yeah, he really could have. He could have just been gone. But he
follows him.
He follows him. He runs out of the storm after him. Like he doesn't know what else to do anymore. I don't know. He
even talks about it. He's like, I'm a servant. Like in his own mind, he's like, I'm a servant to death. What higher position is there? So like,
oh boy.
And so as they're walking, they come to this giant fortress, which is a Night Lord's fortress.
Yeah.
And they're surrounded by Night Lords just out of nowhere. Just all of a sudden, red eyes start propping up everywhere.
Yeah. It's the meeting point.
Yep. That's where they all are. And they're like, hey, we haven't had any fun for a while. Hey, boss, what are you doing with your friend there? And Konrad's like, oh, that thing? You can have him if you want. And just walks off and leaves him.
That was that.
And the dude's just like, my lord, my lord. And you're like, oh my God.
No.
Like he went through all of that.
And still died the same way.
Theon Greyjoy didn't suffer the way that dude suffered.
Right. Yeah. You got that right. Theon Greyjoy did not suffer the way that
4 years of that shit.
With Konrad Curze, who is the epitome of Primarch torture.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. Oh, that's awful. That broke my heart because usually like the suffering that we saw in this book, obviously they would kind of cut away from it enough. Like,
they didn't get so obscene that you would lose your cookies or anything.
Everything was implied. Whatever they didn't do kind of quote unquote on screen, it was definitely implied. They spared you not. They just didn't make it gratuitous.
No, they let your mind do plenty of the wandering.
Yes, they did.
They went into enough detail. They talked about at one point he sucks the eyeball out of somebody's skull and eats the juice, the jelly.
Yep. What?
So
he's a monster, and they make sure that you know just how horrifying of a monster he is to these people.
And the fortress on Sagualsa is where he stays and where he dies. He's had this vision of this assassin that's going to come kill him in the name of the Emperor, and in Konrad's mind, he never did anything wrong.
Right.
He did exactly what the Emperor, like we said.
Yeah.
He didn't take into account the corruption of chaos or the mistake of Nostromo. He assumed that this was all exactly what he was supposed to be doing.
Right. He thought this was just to a T the Emperor's plan.
And so he felt that the Emperor sending this assassin to kill him and allowing the assassin to kill him was the final kind of punctuation mark, period, exclamation point on his stance on the matter. Because he's like, I have done nothing wrong, and yet the Emperor is still going to kill me, which only proves that I'm right.
That I'm right.
That we are monsters.
Yeah. I couldn't help the way that I am.
Right.
It means that I'm correct.
And he does. He tells the Night Lords to stand down, and the assassin comes and kills him and fucks off.
Yeah.
And his last words are, death is nothing compared to vindication.
Yes.
which becomes a cry for the Night Lords.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Because it was recorded, his death, or well, at least his last words were recorded.
They finally found a full recording that showed his death as well.
Right. Oh, okay. Oh, man.
It was the last time in recorded modern history that the entire Night Lords Legion came together.
Wow.
Is to watch that video of their Primarch being killed.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's heavy.
So they can see him one final time.
Whoa, man. Wow. But I love that, like, in the end, he chose vindication over like he had that kind of dichotomy between justice and vindication kind of going on with him.
Well, I think part of him also felt that he deserved to die, and so that was justice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true too, damn it. Although he didn't cite justice in his final words.
He didn't.
No, he was already long past that.
He was. That part of his mind was...
Yeah. I don't think he thought he deserved to, really.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
But there is a scene that I'd like to touch on.
Ooh, yes.
And
I was hoping so.
Yeah. So there's a scene right before he kind of surrenders himself to death and goes to his throne to wait. When he's talking to this statue, this kind of symbol of the emperor, this body part.
Yeah.
Statue collage thing that he's made.
It's molded out of corpses.
And the whole time, like, the book keeps revisiting him. Like, he's narrating his life to this statue.
Right.
That's kind of the setup.
Yeah.
And through the whole time, he always says stuff like, no. He'll ask it questions.
Yeah.
And it never answers.
And he gets frustrated
He
that
does.
it doesn't.
And I think, and finally it does. I was going to say something, but I'll hold on.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It finally actually does answer. And he and the emperor have a conversation. Now, it is left open to interpretation whether or not this is Konrad's madness.
Right.
Or the emperor actually managing to manifest. Because he can. It's not that he can't.
Right.
It just takes a lot. And it's incredibly rare, if ever.
Right. Because he's presumably spending all of his force and will on the Golden Throne. And
Konrad is just like, so the emperor shows up in this blinding light, and every time he speaks, the reason why I believe that it is legitimately the emperor is if Konrad has any psychic powers, we've never seen them manifest like this or this strongly.
Right.
Because every time the emperor speaks, it not like the walls are shaking and like shit's falling over.
Yeah.
Konrad's head feels like it's splitting open and it beats him down to the ground. Like there are physical consequences for the voice that is happening. And I just don't see that being Curze's psychic powers combined with madness.
Oh, and that's kind of the argument is like he's the one shaking the room in his madness, which I doesn't seem like there's a precedent for that in his power set. Like that's not how any of his visions
they do kind of hint that he might have had some psychic ability for camouflage and things like that. How he was able to hide or do things like that.
Basically,
not quite to Corvus's extent, obviously, because he's all butthurt about that. He was. He was.
Yeah.
He was so jealous of that ability. He was.
He did the best he could.
I know, but goddamn, man, it's not like it's like being mad that you got a foot long and he's got a foot and a quarter. Like, what are you getting mad at?
Like at the end of the day, man, his whole thing is to not be seen, and your whole thing is like let him see it. Yes. So you know what I mean? There's going to be a little disparity in the skill set there.
Absolutely. But the emperor starts talking to him, and Konrad just hurls all the accusations that he's had built up at him.
Right.
Like, this was your fault. You did this.
Finally gets his chance, and he's like, "You're here to get my judgment. You must be. Yeah, that's got to be it."
But then he lets a line slip that I think completely shatters that whole like, oh no, it's you that's wrong. He says like, am I to believe that you would simply forgive me? Like he says that very mockingly. Like, is that what, am I supposed to believe that it was that simple? You wouldn't even have that thought if you didn't believe that you needed or even desired forgiveness. Like he wanted it. He just didn't think it was possible.
Right.
And he wouldn't dare to dream
that he could be.
Yeah.
But he was.
He was.
By this voice. He said I even was like, there's nothing. You don't.
The emperor, I think that was the emperor trying to be a father.
Yeah.
Like, because he did say there's nothing to forgive.
Yeah. Basically, he's like, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't mine.
It was chaos.
Yeah.
It was the corruption that did it.
Yeah. And he does forgive him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
he's like, whether you want it or not.
That was it. Yeah. Now I remember exactly the line you're talking about. That's right. Yeah. whether you wanted it or not, I forgive you.
Yep.
And
Konrad, and he's like, this will be the last time we speak.
yeah,
I'm sorry. You should have trusted me. You should have come and talked to me. If we could have talked, he even says, if we could have talked one final time,
Yeah.
I could have saved you.
yeah. And that really did kind of, I don't know, because there's that whole kind of two parts of Konrad Curze going on, and it finally gave that other part of him some.
It gave Konrad a chance.
Yeah, gave him a little bit of a chance, and I just really wish he would. I hate tragic stories. Damn it, it's so sad.
You know what makes it tragic to me? What makes that ending tragic? Konrad believed him when he said you could have been saved.
Yeah,
because when the Emperor's light vanishes and the voice goes silent, Konrad just breaks down and cries.
Yeah, it just totally broke him.
He grabs he grabs what's left of that statue and just cries.
Yeah. Because that's kind of when he's like, you know what? The thought that he was actually the monster the whole time would have been too much for him.
It would have been too much for anybody to bear.
Yeah. Because he believed wholeheartedly, first that he was justified in what he was doing, and then that he was, just had to do it. There was no other choice in what he was doing. And then to finally come to a moment
that it was
after
all you.
all of that.
That it was really all you the whole time. Yeah.
Like
the things you did to what you did to Vulcan, what you did to Nostromo.
Yeah.
All of it.
It makes me sad. It makes me really sad.
And that's why he's my favorite.
Yeah.
Man. I think there's some exquisite writing with
that's
Konrad
some
Curze.
good. Yeah. That's some good, like, talk about some juicy stories.
Yeah, that's
like, holy cow.
But Konrad is special to me because I like his story. But I got to be real with you. Most of the Primarchs have awesome stories like that, which is why I'm such a Horus Heresy fan. Because the characters themselves are so good, and what happens with them is so good.
Right.
Oh, yeah. God, I love it.
Dear Lord. Like, ugh.
So we're going to wrap this up. But the way we usually wrap this up is we compare it to something else.
Yeah.
I think we can do a one-for-one character comparison between, we had talked about this a little bit, between Konrad and another famous dichotomy character, Gollum from Lord of the Rings. We keep going back to Lord of the Rings, but it is the fantasy for which all the fantasies are compared, right?
Right, yeah.
But in this particular case, especially, I think Gollum, Smeagol, is very much a comparable character to Konrad in the Night Haunter.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Of course, like if Gollum were a Primarch, you know what I mean? So you always you strip that away and you have this wretched, torn creature who has
a good side and a bad side that are constantly warring within them for sanity.
Right. And it kind of does go beyond just having those two names, but and it's not just, for Gollum especially, I guess for both of them, it's pretty literal, differences in personality sometimes.
Yeah, but it didn't start off that way.
No, it didn't. And they're also trying very hard to define themselves by this name or not by that name.
Right.
At a certain point. And one of the things about both of them is they're split just based on I almost want to say belief in different ways. Belief comes into play in their kind of struggle within themselves, in Konrad has this belief, but he's also had doubt too. In his prophecies,
yeah, he does. Yeah, many times.
Yeah, and so that often, seemed to cause question internally, not necessarily externally. He always seemed to have quite a lot of conviction, except for with the people that he confided in private moments.
Yeah, very few.
Yeah, and Gollum was, of course, always he both loved and hated the ring. You know what I mean?
Very much like Konrad and the Emperor.
Yeah, in which he loved and hated the Emperor too. Yeah, that's a great point. Because and the ring was special to him in a way, but he also loathed it. And in the end, he died kind of just surrendering to his darker nature, really, which I kind of think is what Konrad ended up doing. Even though he had that revelation, he still did kind of
for Gollum, I think it was he gave into it. For Konrad, I think he surrendered.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way of putting it.
I think Konrad, I think Gollum fought right up that personality of his fought right up until it lost the war.
Yeah.
I actually think Konrad won the war against the Night Haunter.
Yeah.
And then opted out of the fight.
And then punished himself for it. Yeah. Just because he probably didn't think he deserved it first, maybe.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Didn't deserve it. Did deserve it.
Yeah. And one interesting thing that is antithetical between the two of them is it's not really in the movies, but in the books, Smeagol kind of has a final confrontation with the ring in a way. It kind of manifests through Frodo for a moment and completely rejects him. He's like, if you ever touch me again, you will be cast into the fires of Mount Doom. Ironic. In a very intentional sense too, I should say.
Master Tolkien.
Yeah. And so, but the flip side of that here, where these two characters kind of, in my opinion, kind of split, is in these last confrontations with the object of their ire. Is Conrad's accepted by his, not rejected, but he's the one who ends up kind of turning away too, in a way, but he's kind of got, obviously they are very different stories and different arcs.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the comparison's only going to go so far, but I do kind of like that idea of there was a hand outreach at the end for Konrad, whereas Smeagol kind of at the end had that rejection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just shows that either way,
you
can only carry it so far.
Right. And it's kind of just up to you to choose which nature you go with in that case.
Yep.
These guys just have a pretty rough split in their own fucking minds.
Yeah. And it's a good example of you can make a villain as bad as you want and still make them sympathetic.
Yeah.
If you just put the time in.
Right. And I actually kind of think that's important sometimes.
It certainly can be. Do not get me wrong. I love me a good old fashioned mustache twirling, no sympathy villain.
Right.
Fuck yes.
Evil for evil's sake.
And in fact, I think there's a little bit of that missing in modern Hollywood right now. I think we could stand to have some iconic, unforgivable villains right now.
Yeah. Right. Kind of the opposite of a paragon.
But yes, the sympathetic villain, when done properly, is a powerful tool.
Right. Especially ones that they're not forgiven. We're not.
It's not an advocate.
No.
You don't have to be an advocate for them or anything. It's just recognizing that part in them that can be damaged the same way it can be damaged in us.
Right. Exactly. Nothing is black and white, contrary to Conrad's beliefs. It's there.
He really wanted it to be. If it was black and white, then he was innocent.
Yeah. Right.
Because then only motives, then the ends justify the means.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think we've done enough for this day.
Yeah.
This is chapter 1. We will revisit Konrad when and if there is more developed in his story. Obviously, there's always ways for them to do a new story that takes place in time when he's alive and when he's still actively doing things.
If we come across other things in our other kind of
absolutely, as we study stuff. Right. There's a lot with the lion that has Konrad in it that will lead us. So there's other things with Konrad in it. This is by no means meant to be a complete comprehensive, just more of a look at what makes Konrad special in the wider scale of the lore and just the way things are. And it's by no means meant to be comprehensive.
Right. But right. And so probably look forward to a chapter 2 down the line.
At some point.
Yeah. A lot of these are going to have chapter 2s. This could very well be one of them.
I very much say I would doubt that any of them won't have a chapter 2 at some point. This shit just keeps unfolding and unfolding.
Yeah.
So chapter 1 down, chapter 2 waiting in the wings when and if necessary.
Yeah. But this is really the first time we've kind of just looked at one person as opposed to kind of a lore culture as a whole.
Damn right. And we almost went 2 hours doing it.
Oh, dear Lord.
So,
wow.
I mean, this is not going to be the last one either. No. I'm going to let Eric pick the next character that we dive into. So I'll be interested to see what he picks.
Excitement.
I smell whiffs of Yarrick and hints of
perhaps something a little wolfy.
Who knows? Who knows? He's got his leanings. We'll find out.
I do.
I'm excited. So, guys, with that, I'm Ben.
I'm Eric.
And thanks for joining us on another episode of Call to Lore. We will be back at it with another one. I believe the next episode is going to be starting a new timeline of one of the major players. We're going to go with the Eldari.
Yeah.
The Eldar. Fuck the Eldari. It's the Eldar.
I like saying the Eldar better myself.
I do too. I think the re at the end is just too flowery. And also, nobody likes re. Like, no, it's Eldar. And we're actually going to have Dan will be back with us on the main storyline as usual. And we're actually going to have Daniel join us. Daniel knows nothing about 40K.
Totally new to it.
He's not new to fantasy and he's not new to the concepts, but he knows absolutely nothing. And we've intentionally kept him in the dark so we can have some fun with him at his expense, but our pleasure.
Yes.
Because Warhammer is such a great fandom to fuck with somebody with.
I know, and it's been a while since I've had a kind of conversation where it's like that person just gets utterly shocked by this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That was me, for a while there where I'm just like, wait, oh my God.
Right.
What? Oh.
So we're going
to bring some of that into the
we're going to traumatize somebody for your listening pleasure. All right, guys. With that, thanks for joining us. And you guys take care.
Bye.